And that way we'll get a nice clean recording this way. So thank you for coming tonight. I'm very excited. If you um, placed an order online, you probably got an email from me today with these directions. And if you're on my team, in the file section of our team Facebook group, you can find these. But really, the whole idea, the whole point of this was to show the difference between different coloring mediums. So actually, I've been playing with them this week. For example, this one, I'm not sure if you're going to get the light as nice. Here, let me, here. There are two different colors of red there, and it is meant to look like it was colored with blends. But in reality, those were classic markers. So you can use your classic markers. And I used, here we go, Poppy Parade and Real Red to get them blended like they look like blends, but I actually used classic markers. Now, if you use blends, it goes faster. But if all you have is the classic markers, you can still use them like regular classic, like blends would. But before we get started, I want to kind of go through some of the basics. First of all, here's the 4 cards. Aren't they cute? Love them. And then I want to grab a real piece of cardstock and show you. So what's the difference between classic markers and blend markers? Well, first of all, these bigger markers, the fatter markers, are blend markers. And these skinny markers are the classic ones. So the difference between them is this one is based with water and this one is based with alcohol. And I'll give you an example of what that might mean. One time I was hosting a workshop at a friend's house far away, and my husband's coworker decided to bring her daughter. So the coworker brought her child, and the child got into my bag and colored with a Sharpie marker all over my host's coffee table. I'll never forget. I freaked out just a little bit, as you can imagine. But my knowledge of how these different marker types work really helped me, because we were able to get the Sharpie marker off of her coffee table, and it was all polished up and looking brand new before I left. So here's how. Alcohol markers, you can imagine, they lift with alcohol. If you've ever seen the commercial on TV with, protein gets out protein. Well, if you color on, say, a tile, let's do it. Let's grab a tile. And this is a pretty tile that I did before. And you color with it with a blends marker. And you let it dry, it's not going to come off with anything other than alcohol. So think hand sanitizer, think straight rubbing alcohol. This one actually smells like mint. I use it to disinfect the microphones when I do karaoke classes. But when I do karaoke, in between each person, I clean the microphone because nobody needs to get a cold, right? But you can clean off non-porous surfaces for an alcohol marker if you use alcohol to lift that surface, right? Okay, so that's the first thing you need to know. These, on the other hand, smells like mint toothpaste. These, on the other hand, are water-based. So you can use water-based mediums to blend them, like the Wink of Stella glitter marker, whereas the Wink of Stella would sit on top of the alcohol markers if we were to use them that way. Okay, so that's the first thing you should know. Second thing you should know is that when you're coloring with alcohol markers, you can go right through if you're not careful. So I'm going to start with the darkest, and this is a dark cherry cobbler. And then I'm going to go from the dark cherry cobbler, just to show you how they work, and go right into the dark and pull it out to the light. So you can see I got like a little, it's all nice and wet still. Now I'm going to the other end of the spectrum. It's still a red, but this is Poppy Parade. So the next color down would actually be real red, but I'm going to do a stark different color and blend anyway. And just take that dark and pull it right out into the light. And then this is the lightest of the reds, Light Poppy Parade. So I went from the darkest of reds to the lightest of reds. And when I get to that last one, there was a little bit of a line. You just go over it and you pull the dark out right into the light. Okay, so that's the idea of a blends marker. And it's going to blend, right? Now, what happened to my paper? Well, it bled through. So when you're coloring with blends markers, it's always good to have something sitting underneath. Luckily, I know how to clean my tile off. So I can take a little bit of rubbing alcohol and clean my tile off. But if you have that happen to you, hopefully it won't be on a tile, or it won't be on your beautiful countertop or your table. It will be on a piece of paper where you can just discard it afterwards. And I might have to work on this, but it'll lift much easier using alcohol stuff. Now my tile is a little bit porous, meaning it is marbles, and this marble has like little holes in it, so I'll have to get really down in there to clean it, but you get the idea, right? Okay. So, oh, the arrow's all the way over there. Yeah. Okay, so there is my lens sample, right? Well, now we have this thing called the lifter. Now, this is the thing that you would use if you were coloring with, say, someone's hair color. So we'll pretend this isn't red and then it's brown. And if we wanted to make a highlight of where the light is hitting somebody, it would lighten up. Now it's going to take a second for it to lighten up, but I'll show you. I'll get a little closer so you can see. And it's kind of like, has anybody ever stamped with bleach? I'm going to just go look at you a little bit so I can see maybe. I'm watching you. If you've stamped with bleach, just give me a little wave. Well, what happens when you stamp with bleach is you're usually stamping on cardstock, and it takes a minute for it to lift. Well, the same thing happens with this. Oh, look, and look, the color lifter went right through too. But that's the thing. You definitely want to have something underneath when you're using blends markers, but then you can go back in again and lift again, and it will continue to lift. Now, the problem with it, it's still wet. So if I go back in and lift again before it's done drying, I'm not going to know where I'm at before I go again. So I'll lift again and it'll all of a sudden be too much. Has anybody had that happen? Where you thought you were lifting and you wanted to get to a certain level, and then oh, well, it's not light enough. So you go in and lift again and you're like, ugh. The other thing that you really probably shouldn't do is, and you can try it if you're like really stuck, but you really shouldn't try to use this as a color correction tool. You don't want to say, hey, I went outside the line, so I'm going to try and lift it, because it'll get wetter and wetter, and it can cause your other colors to bleed into the color that you're trying to lift. So it's not really meant as an eraser as much as it's meant as something for you to add the light. So I'm looking at Mary right now, and Mary has a beautiful light coming in her window, and I can see the shine on her hair. And if I were trying to lighten her hair, I would lighten in just the areas where her hair is, but then you got to wait. Otherwise, it will continue to lift. And look at the mess I made on my tile. That's funny. And the other thing is, if I pour rubbing alcohol right on this, I could lift my bird right out too. So it's one of those things. Got to be careful. But it's fine. It's a tile. It's okay if I erase my bird. I'm not attached to him. Okay, so that is the general gist of the alcohol marker thing. Classic markers are water-based, so you can blend them with water. And our ink pads that come in solid colors are also water-based. So this ink and this ink are essentially the same thing. And if you have a marker or if you have an ink pad, you can color with them equally, like they're the same thing. So I have a few colors that we're going to play with tonight. Threw them all in the bin. I don't think I used Granny Apple at all. All right, let's put that to the side. All right. So that's just kind of a quick overview of blends versus classic markers. So I'm going to pull in the samples. And this guy is first. He's on deck. As we go, I'm going to give you some coloring tips. So I'm going to pull out just from my Petal Pink cardstock up. Petal Pink being the color of my nail polish. Alexis, it's a dead match. We had our nails done. I said, I'm going for Petal Pink. Oh, thank you so much. Glad you're loving it. Let me see. And keep in mind, I'm gonna have a question and answer at the end. So we'll just go for it here. If you've got questions, write them down for me so we don't forget. Okay. So to start, I'm going to pull out my Memento ink. Now, Memento ink could technically move if you were coloring with classic markers, but it's never really happened to me. I can use Memento both with classic markers, ink pads, and blends markers. So I'm not limited in that way. By the way, if you liked my little Santa projects, that's a little sneak peek of the 12 weeks of Christmas that's coming up. If you're on my email list, this is one of the weeks, and it's using one of those standing card easel cards that I did last week. So, like on one of the videos. So all of that is coming your way. There'll be 12 weeks of awesome projects coming your way, which is cool. All right, so I'm going to start with this one, and I'm going to stamp. I almost lost the stamp in my hand right there. I'm going to stamp a pumpkin here, and then another one right off the paper. And then I'm going to bring my guy in. Block I got for on stage. You can tell it's got my name on it. My friend had it etched for me. Oops, wrong one. Huh. Well, that's embarrassing. Where's that stamp? Ooh, I'll be back. All right, well, I'll have to go find that stamp on the other table. Hey, honey. Assistance. You can't hear me. It's all right. While I'm at it, I'm going to stamp the boo on this layer. The only thing about me doing a live class is you get what you get. So if it's not perfect, I don't have the edit button. Hey, honey. Bri, can you come look for a stamp for me? It's on the other table. So while he's coming to my rescue, I'm going to show you how to color the pumpkins. I'm going to start with the darkest color, in theory. Oof. I lost a stamp over there. Looks like this. Pumpkin guy.
So it's the pumpkin on the ghost?
Yep. If you know me at all, you know that this is a family business, so he can maybe that side and the tissue paper. This was out on the table for 2 weeks since I designed it, so I just missed one. So I'm using the outline of my dark blends, and then I'm gonna blend right in the dark lines and pull it out into the light. So start with the dark. And notice I have my black paper under there this time, so I'm not coloring on the tile anymore. But it does bleed through every time. Don't mind us, like excavation now. So now I'm taking this light marker because although I blended with the light marker, it colored it more of a solid color. And I am blending that up a little bit. No look, how big? Perfect. It is. He's the finder of lost things. Wouldn't that be embarrassing? It was right there on the table. God. So this marker is completely dead. And when they get to this point, I usually replace them. So I'm using the skinny side. I must have only used the skinny side the first time I colored with this. So I'm doing like old school, you start with the dark outline. And then once I lighten that, see how it's lighter now? I can go back in and add more depth. So you see on this one how like it goes from light to dark and then back again. Now I'm adding the dark pumpkin back on top. Just gonna... It's that time of night. I need my glasses. Now, what I wouldn't recommend is I wouldn't recommend using StazOn with alcohol markers. You don't want to mix your alcohol because StazOn is an alcohol-based marker as well. Yes. I stand behind it. I think it's on that original table. That's okay. I can go back in a second. So now I can look at you over my eyeglasses. I've never worn eyeglasses in my whole life this first year. I'm looking to see if you have any questions. Let's see. Trisha. Oh, wait, you got the tails. Yeah, I used to get them at Home Depot, and then Lowe's started selling them, and then I haven't been able to find them in a while. But they are tumbled marble tiles. And they're perfect for doing things like this. So I'm gonna come in and color with my basic gray now, and just do the pumpkin stems. My husband found it. Want to see where it is? In the stamp case. Honey, can I borrow you to get me a block? So special. And I don't like how dark it's coming out, so I'm going to blend it and use it with smoky slate. Yep, thank you. Perfect. Thanks, honey. Oh, look, he found my bats too. In fact, I used every stamped in the set. Funny. Oh, at least you found them, right? Alexis, I see you laughing. It's the funny things. Yeah. At least you know you go away to school and some things never change. Okay, so I'm gonna color this guy in, and I am neglecting this set of pumpkin. I guess I need some new pumpkin markers. I know I have more up on the shelf though. Just happen to be the ones I grabbed. So this time I'm going light to dark. So you can go either way. You can start with the light and then add the dark in. But the keys to the city is this guy. You want to be able to go in and lift in the middle to create that shine. But when you go lift, you have to wait for it to do its thing, or it you won't know where it's going to land before you lift again. So here we go. I love to color. It is one of my favorite things to do. On the replay, maybe I should fast forward that, but that's what I would do all weekend if I had my free time. Anybody have any questions while we're rolling? I'm watching now. I've got your comments up. So I've filled in with the light. Oops, I did go outside the lines, naughty. Here we go. I'm going to lift here and kind of see where that lands. And while that's lifting, I'm going to go back and do my lines. Oh, not with that side. I fall for that every time. So if you get too close to the edge when you're coloring something in with blends, it can spread out as you go. It is very fluid, so it is meant to spread. It is meant to blend. So see, just me holding my dot there, ready? It's as dark on the other side. It spreads and blends through the page, under the page, beside the page. So you just have to be careful when you're doing detailed lines not to get too close to the edge. You can always like color up to it and then almost let it fill itself in. Nothing yet, but where do I get the tiles? Okay, so here's the outside. And then I can go back in and clear up any of those lines if you want to blend them out. And I am using that shadowed side, but that's okay because it's just gonna like go on kind of whooshy like a paintbrush. You can quote me on that. Whooshy like a paintbrush. That's the quote of the night. All right, so I'm gonna pull in purple because doesn't everybody need purple eyeshadow? See, that would have been a look. I should have put purple eyeshadow on. Although for me, it makes me look like I have black eyes. This is probably not a good idea. Oh, where's my so petal pink. This petal pink is what kind of marker? It's the classic kind. So this one doesn't blend, but I want to fill his little insides in to make him look like it's the inside. He's glowing. He doesn't have teeth. Luckily, this pumpkin cannot eat you. I like fun, happy Halloween. I don't like scary, creepy Halloween. You won't find me watching a horror flick. This is smoky slate. Okay, so here's another thing you can do, and it doesn't matter whether you're using this smoky slate or the smoky slate, the alcohol-based or the regular. This one is slightly lighter because you have the two color thing that the blends does, so I can use this one. But you have to also keep in mind that it does bleed, so you got to go quick. And you just go around the side. Anybody know what I'm doing? Any guesses? Throw it in the chat if you know what I'm doing. No cheating, Alexis. She grew up with this stuff. She's like, I already typed it. No, no, it's backspace, backspace. She's laughing. Backspace, backspace, backspace. You can say it. Go ahead. If you want to create a shadow on something, the best way to do it is a smoky slate marker. It doesn't matter whether you're doing classic or if you're doing alcohol based. Check it out. So it makes it look like he's actually sitting on the ground now. It's not just like floating up there in thin air. Silly girl. It's making me laugh. All right, so I'm going to take this and cut them out. And here's a little tip for you. Well, a couple of things. First of all, anybody who knows me knows that I move the paper and I keep my hand stationary. I've been in classes where friends have, oh, and I forgot to color his noggin. We'll get there. Friends have actually contorted their bodies to get this to cut out, but it works much better if you keep the scissors in front of you. I do love the Stampin' Up! Paper snips for what we call fussy cutting. Trish, I'm sorry if you're cutting out yours right now. She loves fussy cutting so much. But this technique makes it a lot easier. And I will say, she's like, no, see, this is my true Halloween. I'm scared. By moving the paper and not the scissors, I'm much less likely to make it choppy. It goes smoother around those edges. And I have to say, my daughter learned this in kindergarten because I used to volunteer over at the kindergarten, and all the kids that couldn't cut could cut when Mrs. Kempton was done with them. Even you can cut too. Funny, funny. Okay, so he's a little color like right there, wouldn't you say? And let's pull back in that pumpkin color again. I have to say, it's way better doing this than Facebook Live because I love watching your reactions and seeing you. So thanks for being here with me. It's nice to see your smiling faces. Oh, I see Val up there. I couldn't tell everybody's name, so I should have probably went back in and named you instead of like by the phone number, you know. All right. So I'm gonna lift a little because it looks funny. So this is like trial and error here. Like when you get into blending, you can go back and forth between the lift and the deposit. So I'm a hairdresser too. Did you guys know that? When I did hair, color was my thing. And before you can deposit a color, say on top of gray hair, you first have to lift the color out, even gray. So to get it to take, you have to lift the hair follicles. Well, same thing kind of applies with paper. I got a little fruit fly right there. Had to get them. All right. 'Tis the season. And some Wink of Stella, of course. I don't know how winky my brush is. Oh, there we go. I'm gonna add it. Sorry if you can hear the sirens in the background. Hopefully they'll just be going by. I added Wink to just my little guy to make him happy. So to assemble this, it's fairly easy. We're gonna put this guy up on dimensionals. And then these layers just layer up one on top of the other. And this guy gets to stand up a little higher. So I guess I can do that. How many of you are crafting along with me? Beth, are you making your card? Yeah, cool. Those of you that placed orders ahead of time, you got a packet. You're going strong. I love that. If I get too far ahead, just yip at me. Hopefully I'm not going that fast. And I did, like I said, not to, ooh, Well, you know what? I'm not going to do anything with that because we're going to put this guy on top, so it's not going to matter. I've put an extra little mark there. Oops. Nobody's going to know. Anybody have any questions? Okay. I love this embossing folder. I will say though, it's a little challenging in that the lines aren't perfectly straight. So sometimes when you go to stick something down, your eyes will go like cross-eyed trying to figure it out. So just go by the colors and don't really pay attention to the actual lines if you can help it. Catherine, good to see you. Good seeing your faces, Jackie. All right. So here we go. Oh my gosh. So I didn't put Wink on him the first time, but he's really cute with it. It like, I don't know if you can see it. Probably not because of I have almost too many lights for you to see it. Okay, and then I guess I wasn't even thinking when I posted the bingo box to my page this morning that everybody was going to be asking Alexis to print those boxes. Alexis, I'm sorry. For bingo next week, one of our extra prizes is her bingo box, and it holds one of every block, including the ones that we stopped making, which I happen to have some. So that's one of the prizes for next week's bingo. Linda Danis won it last time. She was excited. All right, so that's our first project. Anybody have any questions? Not seeing any come through on the chat. Oh, 6 new messages down there. Okay. Darkening the lines for the left. Yeah, that's Alexis. Shadow. Gray hair is without color, but there is, you have to lift the hair follicles before you can deposit. So even if you have gray hair, you can't just add color for it to reach the base of the hair root without lifting, which is pretty interesting. So it like that's what this does. It lifts. One of my favorite things to do when I was a hairdresser was when someone came in and they're like, well, my hair was red and then I put semi-permanent, brown, and then I had this and then I had that and now I want to be blonde. Oh, good. So, yay. Okay. So yeah, no, that's a good question. But yes, that's a real thing. And I think it's one of the things, like, I guess everything that you go through in your life leads to the knowledge that you have. And I love color and I always have. So this is just kind of like my happy place. So that's basically coloring with blends, right? We did just a straight ink pad for that with the pumpkin. All right. So let's move on. We got the sky next. So on this guy, I did a little bit of both again. There's more classic markers on this one than there was on the last one. And in the packet, if you got a packet, you got a scrap white here. And we need to stamp the flying ghost. Whoop. Wow. He really was flying there for a second. Awesome. And you may notice I did cut him out also. Oh, while we've got this out, we can stamp the Happy Halloween. I thought this really looked like a moon, and if we wanted to, we could have added some pumpkin to the moon, but I liked that the balance of the colors, so that's the only reason I didn't. If I had more pumpkin on the card, I probably would. Is all that extra noise coming from me because it's on my phone? Oop. Oh, look, I'm spotlighted. That's awesome. Hi, everybody. Let's go again. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so I stuck with the yellow because I didn't have any orange in this card, so that's where we're heading. And we're gonna go in and start with, I used a lemon lolly marker for this because it's the same color as the moon. But if you don't have lemon lolly on hand, you could use like another color, daffodil, or you could use the daffodil blends and then lift it a little bit to get the lighter yellow. So that, I mean, there's 100 ways to get to the same color in any of these mediums, which makes the coloring class kind of exciting and scary at the same time because, you know, there's so many different ways you can go. And even just talking amongst ourselves, there's even more ways than what I can share in one night. Anyway, so for the broom handle, I'm going to go in with a classic marker on the bottom of the broom. What I mean by the bottom is just like the side facing the ground. I'm assuming that he's not upside down. And then I'm going to take that while it's wet and I'm going to treat my markers like blends. This is smoky slate and basic black blended together. And I'll see if I can do a close-up so that you can see it. But again, I'm gonna add my darker line towards the bottom. So again, if there was a highlight, the highlight would come from the top. Now I got my classic markers behaving like blends. Here, let me see if I can show you a real close. So there's actually two colors there, and you can blend them together, especially if you do it when it's wet. There's a little bit of a line, probably like a 1/4 of an inch above where his, I'm going to say where his hand is. So now that I can see that really well on camera, I'm going to go back in and blend it again with the lighter marker and pull that dark color right out in. So I'm treating it like it was blends. And it will oxidize out here in a minute. It's just really wet, so I'll give it a second. So while we're doing that, I'm going to do the same thing to his hat. I'm going to go in with the darker color and add it on the bottom of the brim of his hat. And I'm going to add it to like some of the lines that the artist made. It's hard to go wrong if you go with what the artist did, right? And I'm not even being fussy with those lines. You can tell that they're like not perfect, but that's okay because we're going to take the classic marker with smoky slate and go right back in and blend the dark up into the light marker. So it's got both. And I did hit the middle just plain with smoky slate. But don't be afraid to go right through the black and blend it up. And the other thing is you got to remember whatever way you pull the marker is the way the streak is going to look. So if you go this way, the streak on the hat isn't going to look like it's colored that way. It's going to look like you colored up and down. So stay with the same line of where you were going, and it's going to blend with the hat the way that artist made the lines originally. Almost looks like a no line watercolor there. Okay, so now I've got so I've only got one Highland Heather marker left, and that's okay. I'm gonna just use the one, and then I'm gonna use my color lifter to get the middle lightened up the way I want it. So I went straight, dark Highland Heather. And if you have more than one color purple, you can use whatever you have, you know, there's no, but then I'm gonna just, ooh, I barely touched it and look at how it lightened. Woo. I'm gonna let that sit for a minute because it's like, it's even lighter than I think I want it to be. See the big hole there? It's interesting how fast it went. All right, let me get closer so you can see. So I can go back in once it's dry, but I'm gonna give it a hot minute and I'm gonna do the back of his cape first. So this will be one solid color, and the blends does go on a little faster than the classic marker. The classic marker, because it's made out of water instead of alcohol, doesn't move as quick. Okay. And then I'm going to fill that in again because it's a little too light. I'll go on the other side of my lifter and just take a little bit this time. It just flies up. And then here I'm going to put some highlight on his back. And of course, because I'm using the little side, now I just have the little lines and I want this to be more streaky. So hang on. I don't want there to be lines. I want it to be blendy. And now I have to wait a minute because I got to let the color lifter do its thing and decide if I like it or not. And if I don't, I can add more color. But if I keep lifting, I'll never know what the color is to get there. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to make him a little bit human and give him petal pink inside his mouth. And add some sparkle to the broom and to the brim of his hat. The gold thing on the top should be shiny. It's not as blendy as I'd like. So I'm going to try again, and you can just lay it right on top if you don't like the color. And give it a second to dry because now it's moving. Even the sides aren't blended yet. So then you just kind of give it a minute. Letting it dry. Give it a little bit. All right. And then so it got so blendy here that it went outside the line. You can try and color correct it, but there's no guarantee that it won't like bleed more, you know? So if you do that, go easy. And definitely make sure that you see that the blends have like the lifter has dried before you try again. That's good. I think I'm going to stop there for a minute. And while this guy is doing his thing, lifting, that is, I'm going to cut him out. And again, leave a white border all the way around. Move the paper. Don't keep your scissors stationary in front of you. I really was going to match his hat, so I'm doing good. Take your time with this. It's like so worth it to have a nice clean rounded edge. Like it looks so pretty when it's all done, especially if you get that nice white border around it. I think sometimes when people have trouble with fussy cutting, they're either trying to cut too close to the image or they're doing some sort of contortionist thing with but they're moving their whole body to try and get into this little space and really just move the paper. It's cool. And I did make that little swoop on the end of his tail a bit big, so I'll go back in and fix that. But at that point, you can trim and just go again. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the best thing I can say is it's better to have too big of a white section because it's like a haircut. Once you've cut too much, you have to wait for it to grow back. And I kind of like where that blends ended up, so I'm not going to touch it anymore. That's the thing. It's like knowing when to stop, you know, because you could play with it all night and still not have it exactly right, but that's good. Good enough is a thing. Hope you're loving your projects. Yeah, I'm looking back through. Linda said thank you for her bingo box looks. Making heart hands for you. Absolutely cool. All right, so then super easy. But this is a great layout and easy to copy. Oof. Hold on the end of my glue dots. Show for that. There'll be glue dots with a vengeance coming back for me. And who would think that you could use zinnia paper for Halloween projects? For those of you in Stampers 8, you have these already. You have like a bunch of these patterns, and they are cool colors to revisit for Halloween. Green is not my favorite color, so I'll put that one down first. Just at an angle. There's no rhyme or reason. Back side of the zinnia again, the purple purple lines. And then a Halloween circle. Sorry if you're hearing my dinging. A friend is texting me because that's what people do when I'm live. I'll have to get back to her later. Okay. Here we go. So our guy is flying into the night sky. And that is the second project. Anybody have any questions? I put that one up on dimensionals. Super cool. Again, I think the white, especially, Wink of Stella. Hello. He's so cute. And I did do the brim bristles as well. All right. Yeah, a multi-purpose summer paper for a Halloween theme. I was really struggling because they didn't have Halloween paper until I designed this class. And then of course they came out with one in the scrapbooking offering. That probably matches my shirt even better than this, but yeah, whatever. Funny. All right, moving right along. All right, talk about repurposing things that you didn't think would go. Well, here is the bumblebee punch, right? So I punched out a bunch of bumblebee bodies out of pumpkin cardstock. And then this glimmer paper, if you got the packet, was from the In Colors. But I think it looks an awful lot like petal pink. Actually, I think I should leave that there. Maybe we'll glue dot it, you know, and make jewelry or whatever. Yeah, you know, because that's what my silly brain does. Okay, so I'm gonna start by, and who would do petal pink and pumpkin pie together? Again, it was because of that designer paper. I do that a lot. I look and see what colors are in a designer paper and I use those. I know that there is a pumpkin pie ink pad here somewhere. Ha. Hiding under my directions. Okay, so I'm gonna run my blending brush through my pumpkin pie and sponge off a little bit. And I've got 3. It also looks like, who's the guy from the Minion movie. Oh, it looks like him too. Alexis will know his name. I'm looking. Okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm getting a message. Sorry. For those of you that are wondering where Liz is, she's not going to be here this week. She had brain surgery this morning. Yes, Gru. Gru from the Minion movie. I'm hoping that Martin will give us a little bit more information. One of the Monday night girls, that's all. Oh, look, I'm going to end up with pumpkin nails. So I am just adding color to my pumpkin. It's been that kind of crazy week with I will say that this morning I woke up thinking about like how fortunate I am to have my health, and that if I woke up to someone that, you know, and I didn't have my health, that I'd want to be watching somebody that did, and how grateful I am for that. And so many things, you know, people who don't have anything that, you know, I woke up and I was able to make my dinner and had the money to do so. And I'm just feeling really grateful. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. She's recovering well. Martin is saying she's recovering well and she's hoping that her speech issues and balance problems will be fixed. Well, thank you so much for checking in with us, Martin. He is like brother of the year. He's taking care of his sister. So this is just a black, oh, sorry, basic gray Stampin' Up marker. And you could use black. You could use brown. But I'm just adding some color to this one to make the stem. And then for Gru, I'm going to take off his beak to make my pumpkin. I'm so glad that Martin checked in with us, because we would all be wondering where she was. Because she's just one of our peeps. Okay, so now I have my 3 pieces and I have cut the top, the beak, off of those. And now I can just layer them together. I am grateful to be here stamping with you guys tonight, that's for sure. I'm gonna look at my sample again. I'm gonna get them a little closer, I think, because this is gonna layer up so that this one's on top, and I'm gonna put some Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of this. Any moment, I will. Anyway, anytime I find them. Okay. I'm just going to scroll through your lovely faces and double check that I'm not going too fast and that nobody has any questions. Okay. I can see your smiling faces. Yay. Cool. All right. Just checking in. So see, I could have even brought those a little closer together. So if you think, like I do, that your pumpkin could be, I'd say closer is better. And I'm gonna move it over. till I like it. But it's such a cool way to make a pumpkin, especially if you already own the bee punch. I know that there was a bunch of you, like, I think there's a bunch of you that bought this bundle. There we go. It just, yeah, just needs a little bit of tender love and care, but scooch it in a little bit, and I think it looks cute. Okay, so if you got the packet, I already pre-tied your bow. That's the check ribbon. It comes vanilla, so I made the paper in your packet vanilla as well. And here we go. So that's my happy Halloween. And I can just attach that pumpkin. So it was all flat except for the top one, which I popped up on dimensionals. And I have one bumblebee pumpkin. Okay, so there's another thing I should tell you about. Here we go. We're gonna add the check paper onto this base layer. And then I did petal pink next. And if you were wondering if I painted my nails petal pink because of this class, yes, I did. And I did it off memory. I was like, I'm going for petal pink. You think that's close? She's like, yeah, I think so. There's the back side of the zinnia paper again, but who would think of petal pink polka dots on a pumpkin card? Love it. So I did the designer paper at this layer instead of on the black layer. So it would break the plane and you'd see the polka dots. Because let's face it, we should just all break out of the box when we're crafting. We have to follow the rules all day long. No rules in crafting. Make your card the way you like it. I could have actually gotten my pumpkin a little bit darker. I think this one is, but that's the thing. In nature, every pumpkin's going to be different too. So it doesn't have to be exactly, but I think I'd like it a little darker. And then to place this, I'm going to suggest, that you don't put as much glue as I did. I like to do just the tiny little dot. That was way more than I wanted, but it's still not overly puffy. So I just spread it out a bit. And I'm going to drop the punched heart on there. That heart also came out of that bee punch. Let me show you. So you have another heart in there too. So it's a really versatile punch. At some point I should venture to make Gru. We've done like minion boxes, and I love minions. Okay, so here is my bow off to the side, and I just used a glue dot. Now, because I manhandled this, it's got a little fuzz on the edge of that, so I'm just gonna come up and cut my bow down a little. So that's the third project, and that was the original. Really cool. Cool. All right. Last card, we got the count. Alexis, this card reminds me of your dad. Many camping trips over the years we have spent in the camper with me cutting out, hundreds of Santas, and Dad's, 99 Santas. Mwahaha. She's only laughing because it's true. All right, so I'm gonna go for it, and I'm gonna put a little bit of adhesive on that designer paper. And again, no matter which way you emboss this, the lines aren't going to be straight. They're not intended to be. I'll just attach that now while I'm here, and then I can find my white and go for my Stampin'. What a surprise it was when I found this guy on my stamp instead of the flying ghost. Wahaha. Okay, so here we go. I got him. And then I stamped the Happy Halloween. Ugh, I don't like the way that came out. I'm gonna flip it over. So two sides to every paper. I don't know, the Ian and Halloween didn't look right, so good thing there's two sides. And we didn't start coloring yet, because if we were coloring with blends, we couldn't use the other side because it does bleed right through to the other side. And in pure form, Dad found the bat stamp right where I left it away. Get me double stamping. And I didn't put it straight on the block, and therefore it is not straight on my project. Whatever, it's okay. It's meant to be whimsical, right? Besides, I already used the back. Yay, thank you. Mwahaha. Yes, exactly. Two. Mwahaha. 59 centos. It's funny after the first two, and then you're like, okay, enough. So that's a good question. Jackie is asking, why do I stamp off once and then re-ink and stamp? Well, when I first stamped with the Halloween stamp, it occurred to me that this stamp had been out on my table for a couple of weeks and that's why it didn't stamp clean. So I stamped off on my scratch paper as kind of like a prime the stamp to accept the ink thing. And then when I stamped the second time, it stamped perfectly, thank goodness. Otherwise, I'd be chopping up another piece of paper right now. I'm just adding a little purple to these stars. That's a great question. Thank you. And this is my one purple blend marker. It is dark Highland Heather. So it's not as dark as grape, but grape and Highland Heather are a duo. So they're the same purple, just one is much darker. And then Blackberry Bliss is the darkest of the trio. So if you were to take those three colors and put them on a color chart, they'd be right beside each other in the same family. We do a lot of that with blues too. I don't know if you've ever been clothes shopping and tried to match a blue skirt to a blue top that didn't like go at the same store. There's like 9,000 kinds of blue. But Stampin' Up! Tries to make it easy for us by doing what's called duos. And in this case, it's a trio. So Highland Heather matches Gorgeous Grape, which is the next color up, which matches Blackberry, which is the darkest of the three. But they'd blend together just like Cherry Cobbler and Real Red and Poppy Parade, the ones we used earlier to show an example. So to make your life easier, they make all of these coordinating colors. In fact, my first job at crafting was not Stampin' Up. I used to work for AC Moore, where my daughter's pictures were all over the wall because I was a scrapbooking person for them. I did all the samples at the AC Moore up in Salem, New Hampshire. I used to do make and takes in the aisles. And people would come in and would set their children up with me while they went and shopped, pretty much. Not lying. But I met a few ladies in Salem, and they said, have you ever heard of Stampin' Up? And I nodded my head because I wasn't allowed to say. This is a black classic marker. And I'm going to use this like I showed you before. with smoky slate, and maybe I'm gonna see what it looks like, but I'm gonna maybe bring in the medium gray too. Because smoky slate should be super light, but when you're mixing it with the black and it picks it up, it might be dark enough on its own. But I am going to treat these like blends and make it into another color. So anyway, I used to do demonstrations in the aisles, and people would drop their kids off to me while they shopped. I should have had a babysitting service in the middle of the store, but that's not how it went. But yeah, no, I had 3 awesome customers that said, hey, if you sign up to be a demonstrator, I would be your customer. That's still flattering, by the way. Every time I see your online orders come through, every time I'm very grateful, and I'm almost shocked every time I get a new person, but I appreciate you very much. So I got my dark marker here and I have my light marker here. I definitely want the color in between. So I got basic gray in my hand, and I'm going to blend out because the smoky slate is a little too light. I want him to kind of be tall, dark, and handsome. Well, he's going to be tall, dark, and green. I don't know about handsome. I'm watching again for your comments. If you have any, I'll answer any questions here on the fly. But yeah, no, I do that a lot too with the stamp off thing. I do that a lot with the photopolymer more than these, because these tend to hold the red rubber tends to hold the ink better. With photopolymer, when I stamp, I press and hold for a few seconds before I actually release. Okay, so we've done markers a whole bunch of different ways. How about if I show you how I would color him green using an ink pad. So if all you have on hand is an ink pad, you still have everything you need to color. You can use a blender pen, which is fabulous, but what's even better is Wink of Stella, yeah. Right? Why would I do that? So I'm gonna brush off just a little and make sure that my brush is clear before I pick anything up. And I pushed my ink pad onto a plastic surface. I used a plastic bag from the class. Although I will say these plastic bags, you can repurpose them after the class. If you use a different piece of plastic, or even like just a block, you can put the ink on that. And then you can put your projects back in and peel the top. And it's resealable. All right, so I go into the main part of the ink. Why would I pull the color out? Well, I could use the green marker and then Wink of Stella over it. But by pulling the color out, it's like the next shade down. It's like what I was talking about with the duo. So you've got the blackberry, the gorgeous grape, and he got black all over my hands, or Highland Heather being the bottom color. So I'm going to start with this green, and I'm going to color up to the line and see what I've got for a green. This is, by the way, lemon lime twist. And I just kind of started with that. So again, while I'm doing it this way, and I'll tell you, the trick to this is making sure that you have enough Wink of Stella on your brush. If you don't have enough Wink of Stella, it's going to seem dry, and then your colors will end up streaky, and you'll end up with lines instead of like pretty. If that makes any sense. And I start with little circles, and I work my way across the project, and I let the ink run off the brush and run out by the time I get to the bottom. So then I've got my natural dark to light. So it's darkest up here where I started. I can always go back into a dark area and add that dark line on one side to make the color even more vibrant. But I do want it to eventually run out of color. So it'll go from dark to light every time. So here's a close-up of that. And I did go outside the lines with the purple a little bit, but you can't even see it because I put the darkest green right on top of that purple, like right inside his jacket there where I ran over. And then it just kind of covers it. And then, of course, you do have to get the green off your brush before you go again, but yep. Ta-da. Okay, so I'm going to rescue that bag and cover it so that I don't put my arm in it, as you know I will. And pretty soon I'm going to shut my phone off so that I can come back and chat with you guys in person, like on my computer. But I had to turn my volume off on one of them. So this is going layering on Blackberry. And then I used Granny Apple Green cardstock, even though I colored with Lemon Lime Twist. Well, guess what, kids? Lemon Lime Twist and Granny Apple Green are also a color duo. So one is a lighter version of the other. This one has a little more yellow in it, but it's definitely just a brighter version of the same color. I love that they do that because when I used to work at the big box store, finding ink to match my cardstock or finding, you used to buy a ribbon for $1 a roll, but it only had a yard on it. So you ran out of ribbon in 10 seconds. Our rolls come at 10 yards. So I was able to tie a whole bunch of bows for you guys out of just a couple rolls of ribbon. Whoop. Just keep talking, Selene. Let's put that on the wrong layer. Anybody have any questions? You can go ahead and unmute yourself if you'd like, if you've got questions or if you just want to chat. I'll stay on with my hands for a couple minutes and then I will ditch the phone and come back so we can have a chat, face to face. Okay, I am going to pause the recording then.